Howdy there, everybody, and God bless. This is Reverend Stamport back with another episode. This is like my second or third attempt to try to do this because I keep messing up in the middle of it. I know it seemed like there may not have been another episode because I've been gone a bit, but that was because some things came up. I got overwhelmed. There's some car issues that's somehow gotten worse, and that overwhelmed me, and I wasn't able to get in the right mind frame to actually sit down and write something. And then I got sick for a second. I think that was due to just me being overwhelmed. It was kind of weird, but my mind wasn't right. But I finally sat down and wrote something out. Get you a nice, concise sermon. I'm going to release this probably today, which is Saturday, after I get it done recorded. And might also get a second episode uploaded today, which will be different than the usual sermons. Because if you notice, I like to go off on tangents and ramble and all kinds of other things. And that's because this religion is fascinating. Christianity is fascinating in general. And you can talk about just pretty much any one thing. Say any one little word about this or that. And that can spiral off into something else. It triggers something in my brain. It goes, oh, you should talk about this because it's interesting. Not a lot of people know about this. A general Christian may not know about this, or so on and so forth. And we're going to do like discussion episodes. One, so I can get it out of my mind. And then also, more content for y'all, right? My voice is a little hoarse because I started, for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going to start singing today. I don't get to sing that often. I used to. And my muscles, my vocal cords and stuff are not as well trained as they used to be. So I got a little hoarse a little fast. I started off just doing some regular songs. And I like sing into the setup that I have so I can play it back and hear it. Trying to get better. And then decided to do some worship as well. And went a little bit too hard. So that's why. But yeah, the discussion ones are going to be a little bit more free-form, rambling. They can also be very short or very, very long, depending on what I'm discussing. The one that's going to be done after this is going to be about the book of Genesis itself, because I started taking a bunch of notes as I was reading it. Because I've read Genesis several different times, but I never read it with this particular Bible, the New Oxford Annotated Bible, that has all the references and background information, or at least most of it, on the same page as you're reading, so you can read it and be like, that's weird, and actually look and see why it's weird. You can see other translations of certain words and phrases, and so on and so forth. It's great. I don't know how different the 6th edition is going to be, but the 5th edition is the one that's been out for a while that everybody can get. But yeah, I'm going to go through the entire Old Testament. We'll probably have a lot of discussions about it. But today's sermon, which is also inspired by me reading through Genesis, is about a story I know we've all heard, but probably haven't thought too much about. So depending on what the title of this episode is, whatever I decide, it's either United, Understanding the Tower of Babel, or We're All Wrong About the Tower of Babel, or the story of Babel. So that's what we're talking about today. So, great jumping off point there. What do you think of when you think about the Tower of Babel? Or when you hear about it? Any thoughts? Anything, really? I mean, you probably just think about the story itself. You know, back in the day, everybody spoke the same language. They tried to build a tower tall enough to get into heaven. God didn't like it, and then he made everyone speak different languages, and they spread out across the world, right? Pretty short and sweet. And it is short. It's literally like one chapter. Chapter 11, and it's barely a page long. Not that long. I mean, and most of the chapter isn't even about that. The rest of it goes in genealogies. It's very, very short. It's a few paragraphs. So other than that, that's probably all you think, right? Anything else? Any other teachings or sermons that you remember about Babel? You drawing a blank? Because I am. I don't remember much about it. I don't remember anything in Sunday school or other preachers talking about it, at least other than just talking about the story itself and, you know, just a general teaching. I mean, it'd come up a lot because it's one of the big ones. You know, when they talk about Genesis, or you talk about the creation, you know, talk about Babel and all that, usually just listing it off as like a quote-unquote achievements that God did in the beginning. But other than that, what do you remember? Any other teachings? Anything else? Any other parables? Any other message that you can get from it? Because I don't remember hearing anything else. I'm not saying it's not out there. I just didn't hear it. And I grew up pretty deep in the church. But I don't remember anything other than just the story itself. They didn't really get into it too much. So if there's nothing else that I've heard, or that maybe many of y'all haven't heard other than just that story, then that probably means that there's no other message to it, right? Just one of the random stories in the Bible that's interesting to hear. I mean, sure, it's important because it's explaining why we all speak different languages and all that, and it's one of the big, like, supernatural events in Genesis, but other than that, that's it, right? No other message, nothing to be learned. That's it. Because if there was more to it, surely it'd be preached about, right? Well, if you couldn't tell, there is more to it, which is why I'm talking about it in the first place. A lot more, in fact, but today we're going to focus on just two things. I know focus. It's like the last thing that I am, but we're going to try. Just two things that can be taken from it. Both of which seem pretty obvious to me after reading it again, but I've never really heard anyone talk about it. Doesn't mean that they haven't, I just haven't really heard it. So maybe it's not so obvious then. But before we start, we gotta first look at the book of Genesis. You know how the Bible is a compilation of different stories, books, poetry, etc., over a bunch of different eras by different people and so on and so forth. It's compiled all these different books together. Well, Genesis is like that as well. We tend to look at it, as we do with other books in the Bible, as one complete work. But it hasn't always been that way. When it started, well, for one, it was written over many different decades, many different eras, by many different people. In the book, you can read that it's telling similar, parallel stories at the same time. That's why reading it can get very confusing at parts. That's why you get deja vu. We're going from chapter to chapter, and you'll think, didn't I just read that? It's because you did. It'll say literally the exact same thing sometimes, just a little bit differently. Sometimes very differently, but with the same setup. It's also why it has two beginnings. It tells how God created the earth twice, and so on and so forth. So Judaism is a very old religion. It didn't start with all the books already written out. And at one time, there were no books. There was no book. The religion was just getting started at one point in time, and when you just start something, you don't really have anything else to go off of. So, we got many different traditions and beliefs across the area of where they lived. And Genesis was a start of some of them compiling those beliefs, trying to make one belief system, which is why it's the beginning of the book and the beginning of the laws. So it's not just the first book of the Bible, it's the first book of the whole religion. It's where everything started to come together for the first time, and then it would later be expanded upon and defined by the time Exodus rolled around, and then, followed by the rest of the law. This is all to say that Genesis used to be all there was. In a sense, it was the Bible at the time, because it was all their oral traditions, or most of their oral traditions, all kind of compiled into one little book, or when they finally did put it in a book, which is why you got all these different stories from different sources, like a priestly and non-priestly source, the non-priestly Yahwistic primeval history, some will call it. Then you got the El-holistic, because God was known as two different things depending on which era it was written in, or which era we're dealing with, which is something we're going to get into. We're going to get all of that and all the weird God stuff and like histories and whatnot in our discussion episodes, otherwise known as my rambling episodes. But for the sermons, we just try to stay focused. But I'm giving you a little bit of background so you can know where I'm getting my two messages from. But for a time, Genesis was all they had. So it's not just a book of stories or laws, but lessons. So it's got everything they needed for their basis of the religion. Genesis has always been seen as mostly metaphor and parable, because it is. It wasn't seen as literal until the very recent evangelical era. So, most of the time, it's been seen as mostly metaphor, just as a way to sort of explain the beginning of the religion and the beginning of why Jews believe this, how God may have created the earth. It's one of many different explanations that they could sort of understand at the time. Because remember, this was thousands of years ago, and they couldn't understand simple concepts. They couldn't understand concepts that we deem simple back then. Remember, there are things that we take for granted, like gravity. That's one. Or germ theory. That's another. Or being able to take an Advil for a headache. This was back in the day. If you got diarrhea, you were going to die. Like, they're... Which now it's like, oh no, I got diarrhea. That sucks. And then you move on. You know, depending on how bad it is, you might have to stay home from work or whatever, or you take an Imodium or whatever. But back then, it was bad. So you got to remember, these stories and metaphors are just that. They're not meant to be taken literally, but they're used as possible explanations. And even today, if you think about what a greater being, something that's beyond your understanding, and forever beyond your understanding, trying to explain how they created the earth and giving you a story, you got to really, really dumb that down. So, you get your whole made it in 6 days and so on and so forth. And that's just what it was. Just a bunch of stories trying to get a basis. So, excuse me. So, while Genesis, and much of the Bible as a whole, isn't meant to be taken as literally, many of the stories are still attempts to explain certain unknowns, like that creation. Or, like the creation of the world. Genesis provides possible answers as to how we all got here and how the earth was made. God created us all, and this is possibly how it went down, etc. For Babel, the question it offers a possible answer to is, why do we all speak different languages? So that's our first point. Why do we all speak different languages? This is probably the most obvious to all the messages that you can get from it. Because this story was used as just a way to explain, hey, why are we all different, right? Which is a reasonable question. If you all started in the same place and are the same people, then why do we all speak different languages? And when you think about it, if you even just take God out of the picture, kind of wonder, hey, if we all did start at least in one similar place, we think we all came from Africa and we evolved and did all that, why are we so different? Why did we spread out the way that we did? And hey, even spreading out, why do we all speak different languages? Wouldn't we all at least kept in touch somewhat? Wouldn't some of these languages, even if they were different, wouldn't they all sound similar or have similar rules and so on? But that's not how it worked. So why is that? Well, the Tower of Babel, the story of Babel, provides an answer. It says, we all used to speak one language, but God split us up. Then, of course, you get the question, well, why did he do that? Well, the story tells us because the people were doing something that displeased God, and that was his only way to stop them. Pretty simple. Of course, that in itself kind of begs more questions, like why was God displeased with the tower? Why was reaching the heavens such a bad idea? Why would that anger God? And so on and so on. Questions like these, lead into the second, often missed reason for the story. At least the one reason why the story was kept around. Oh, forgive me, my brain is still kind of not all there. So we're going to look at Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. So it says, now the whole earth had one language and the same words. As they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had a brick for stone, and bitumen and mortar. See, I'm telling you, it don't matter how long you've read this stuff or whatever, there are still going to be words that mess you up. Bitumen and mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. The Lord came down to the city and saw the tower, or to see the city and the tower which the mortals have built. And the Lord said, look, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because the Lord, that is their... Hold on, there's an annotation in the middle of that messed me up. Therefore it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the earth. So, that's the story. That's literally the entire story. Told you it wasn't very long. So yeah, that's why God did it. except it doesn't really explain why God did it. But that is an explanation for why we all have different languages, and that's the main point for why this story is included. But why did God do it? Why did God do it? Why did this mess him up? Well, one teaching that I've heard from preachers is this whole reaching to the heavens, and how God didn't like that. Except in the text, it doesn't say that he didn't like that. It just says that nothing will stop them, so let's go down and confuse their language. It doesn't really say anything about the tower or the city other than nothing will stop them. And in terms of heaven, it's not talking about the place where God resides. It says heavens, small h. It's talking about a tall tower. What we would call a skyscraper, essentially. Just a big tower. And then, but we assume it had something to do with the city and the tower because God saw it and was like, I don't like this, let's get rid of or let's confuse them because they're unstoppable. So either God was afraid of people, or he didn't like the city. But the actual reason he did that is, at least from what scholars conclude, is by doing this, they were disobeying his order, which was to go forth and multiply and spread across the world. They were choosing to stay in one place to build a city instead of spreading across the world, and he didn't like that, so he gave them all different languages, so they were forced to split up. That makes a lot more sense, and it has nothing to do with the tower or the city of itself, or the city, or them building the tower. It had nothing to do with the tower being so tall. I've heard all these things about going so tall and reaching heaven and all that yada yada. It has nothing to do with that. That's just one of the things they did. God didn't like that they were all together when they should have been spreading out across the world and repopulating, because that was what they were commanded to do. That's why. You have to read between the lines on that one. But that's why. It doesn't really have anything to do. I mean, they still could have built the tower and the city and all this. And as long as they were spreading out, he probably wouldn't have done it. But they were all staying together, all with one language, all one people. But that leads into the second thing. The one that I haven't heard anyone talk about. So that first one, I say I don't really hear it talked about. When I said I have actually heard that first part talked about a little bit, but not much. And it's just people explaining why the story's there. Sometimes they don't go into it because they think it's obvious. They're like, it's to explain why we all speak different languages. But there's more to it there of why God did that. And that is, from what we can gather, it has to do because they were disobeying his commandment to spread forth and multiply across the world. And they weren't doing that. They were staying together. But there's another reason this story is here. See, you got to pay attention to what he says. Pay attention closely to verses 5 through 7. See, these verses here spell out the second main reason, or main lesson that can be taken from this. My brain is not wanting to work today. So I'm going to read those verses. It says, "Look, they are one people." Oh, sorry, I have that highlighted. I messed up. It says, "The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Lord said, Look, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech." Okay, so besides the whole, messing up their language, if you want to pay attention to verse 6, "They are one people, they all have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them." Interesting. So what are we taking from that? What we should take from that is the people are united as one. God says that together, nothing can stop them. Together, they could achieve anything. If it weren't for divine intervention, then nothing would have been out of their reach. In fact, the only thing that could stop them was God, because he was the only one that did. So think about that for a second, right? United we stand. Or have I heard that before? So if you're wondering, what does this mean and how does it apply today? Well, like I said, united we stand. Alone, we can be defeated, but together, we are unstoppable. Together, as a people, we can accomplish anything that we put our minds to, as long as we unite as one. Together united, we can do anything. We can stop all the evil in this world. We can turn the tide in this country and in the world. We can feed the hungry. We can house the homeless, free the oppressed, etc. United, we can do anything. And that's before bringing God into it. Because God said that nothing was impossible when we were united like this. United and with God, then truly who could stand against us? Who could hope to stand against the great changes that we hope to make in the world? No one. And that not only applies just today in general, but to Christianity. What does Jesus talk about all the time? He talks about us, not just Jesus, but then Paul later, talks about us being together in community. Go out and spread the good news, but go and spread it together. Pool our resources, be together, help each other. We're supposed to help each other. We are the world. We're not supposed to be individualistic. Now, yes, some individualism is not bad. I'm not saying that taking time for yourself, because if you can't help yourself, you can't help someone else. I'm not saying, some people they get scared when they hear anti-individualism messages because they think the wrong things. They think people are trying to tell them that they're being selfish for taking care of themselves. That's not true. And selfish, yes, in a literal sense it is selfish. But selfish is more than just doing something for yourself. Because again, you cannot help other people if you can't help yourself. You need that help first. Your brain's not working right and you take a mental health day, that's not selfish. Take that day. Or not. Oh, you know what's selfish? Your arm gets cut off and you go into the hospital and getting that fixed. Right? Technically that's selfish. You're not caring for the other people who might be missing limbs. But if you bleed to death, you're not helping anybody. Those are, of course, very extreme. But you don't have to change a whole lot about your life to come together. Right? We're called to come together, to build community. Even Jesus said, 2 or 3 together united in my name, they can move mountains. We have to come together. We cannot do this alone. We come together. We unite as friends, family, as a community. It starts small, but everything does. We can't do anything in this world alone. People say, oh, you die alone. That's not true. You don't die alone, not if you believe in God. And you weren't born alone either. And you were not created by yourself either. Everyone says, oh, I pulled myself up by this bootstrap, blah, blah. You're a liar. You may not know that you're a liar, but you are. You did nothing alone. Especially if you are a Christian and believe in God. Did you take that breath in by yourself? Did you make the air? Did you make the molecules? Did you do that? No, you didn't. God did. So you better understand that you didn't do that alone. The only reason your lungs work is because He made them work. The only reason any of this works is because He did that. You cannot sit there and act like you did all this by yourself, because you didn't do anything by yourself. And that's okay. We all need help. Not even Jesus did it alone. And that should be the biggest thing that we look at. Not even Jesus did this alone. And He could have, because He's the Son of God with dominion over the world. Even the seas and the storm obeyed Him. He could have done it all alone. He also could have called, 10,000 angels, as that song goes, and destroyed everyone. Never had to die on the cross. But He did. He didn't have to do this alone. He could have done it alone, but He didn't. He was the one that didn't need the help, but He still got it. Because we had to be together. We need to unite and get to community. Asking for help is not a bad thing. We need it. We cannot. The food that I got my money and I got my food, did all that. Really? Where'd that food come from that you bought? Where'd that money come from that you got? Well, it came from your labor, but it came from someone else. And that food that you bought was made and prepared by somebody else. Well, if I grow my own food and raise my own cattle, okay. Who gave birth to that calf? You didn't do it. What spins this world? Did you do that? Did you make the rain and water cycle and all that? No, you didn't. We didn't do any of this alone. On an atomic level, nothing happens alone. So we need to get over that. Understand that we are much stronger together. Not just in, trying to get our rights and stuff, which is one of the big reasons we need to do it, but just in general. We need help as people. Every single person on this planet needs help with something, and there's no shame in that, no matter what the help is. Everyone needs help in this world. We all need someone to help us. Little things and big things. And there's no shame in that. There should be no shame in that. Anyone that shames you over it does not need... Well, guess what? They need help too, just of a different kind. And they don't need it of you. But beyond getting help, together we can provide the help. Nothing is too big or too small when we're united together and with God. We are not called to do anything alone. Not called to do this alone. But we're called to spread the good news together. To come together and spread love and unite the world. When the masses put their mind to it, to anything, it will be done. Nothing can stand in their way. Nothing can stand in our way, because united we are unstoppable. Even God saw that. And God saw it and said, the only thing that can stop it is me. So, like I keep saying, if we are united together, we are unstoppable on this earth. And if we are united together and with God, then truly nothing can stop us. You have seen what great evil can do in this world. When we talk about the Nazis didn't do that alone. They came together. They amassed an army to do great evil. And that's why they were able to accomplish it. Because they stood together. And it took too long for anyone to come together, because everybody didn't want to face them. No one wanted to come together. People were too afraid. And if they had, they never would have got started. But it wasn't just one guy. We like to think about the one guy, the one figurehead, but there were thousands of them, millions of them. They came together under a common goal. And they almost achieved it. They almost achieved their awful goal. To exterminate God's chosen people and then also take over the world. And they almost got there. They almost got there. But then the world united against them. Albeit for different reasons, but the world united against them. There might have been some divine intervention on that, because you don't mess with God's people. He doesn't like that. Even if he's not particularly agreeing with them at the time. He doesn't like it when you mess with his people. Even in the Old Testament, he doesn't like it. He might, oh, well, the Egyptians enslaved him and all that. Yeah, he said that was going to happen. And then what happened to the Egyptians? Didn't go great. What happened to the Romans? What happened to anyone, any mass empire that went after the Jews? The Jews suffered. And then all of a sudden that empire disappeared. Very, very violently. Some things changed. The bad things still happen, but they get stopped eventually. And even all this bad that's happening now, I believe, will get stopped. However, we're not supposed to sit around and wait for God to take care of it. Because we're not called to do that. People go, well, how can I do this? How can I do this? And I understand that. But we need to understand we're not meant to do it alone. So let's come together. Let's reach out. You have friends. You got some family. You know some safe people you can talk to. Get out. And you build a community, because we're going to need it. Because let's say tomorrow all the lights go out. Let's say tomorrow the world actually falls apart for one reason or the other, whether it be a government, whether it be a natural disaster, whatever. You won't be able to rely on the bigger guys. You can call out to God, but you don't know exactly what his answer is going to be. Lots of people have prayed and died. Does this mean to stop praying? No. But God may have already been telling you to set other things up. Already been pushing you this way. And then that little community that you've founded, that you put together, 4 or 5 people that pulled their resources together, all of a sudden that is what saves your life. That's what saves your family. And then from that it can grow and get bigger and bigger. When hurricanes hit in the Gulf Coast, there is a group of people called the Cajun Navy. And they are not government sponsored. And this is, by the way, this is not me being against the government helping people. That's one of the weird things. No, or saying that handouts are bad. Your life's a handout. And if you're a Christian, everything about your life is a handout. Not only being born, but being saved. Because nothing that you did or ever do will make you worthy enough for heaven. And people misread that message and misunderstand it all the time, thinking that they take the wrong things. When the whole reason is so we're supposed to be equalized. No one is above one or the other. And that's why we're supposed to get together and help each other. But also, he removed that burden from us. So we don't have to worry about salvation. That's fixed. That's good. Don't worry about that. Worry about here. Worry about feeding the hungry. Housing the homeless. Do what I told you to do. Don't worry about the next life. He's literally told people not even to worry about tomorrow. You're supposed to worry about what's happening here. Not necessarily worry about yourself. Worry about others. Come together. Help each other. It doesn't take much to come together, but some of us are so afraid to even get one other person involved. Some of us may think that we don't have someone else, and I understand that, but there are people. And you think, what can you offer to a group? You have something. Like I was talking in the last one. What you offer may not be grand. You know? Not everybody has to be a millionaire or billionaire to do great things. And together, you don't have to be rich, because by being together, you are rich. 1 billion people with $1 is $1 billion. Not only is that an incredible amount of people, that's an incredible amount of money. But yes, 1 billion people each with $1, or that average $1 among them, is $1 billion right there. And 1 billion people together tend to average more than just having a $1 on them. Now, granted, a billion person movement, that's a big movement. But Christianity is supposed to have billions in it. But you don't need billions to do things like that. You may not even need hundreds. It starts small. But the thing that you offer may not be a bunch of money. It can be that $1, because exponentially that dollar adds up. Or it can be a helping hand. It can be telling a joke to brighten someone's day. It can be literally just sitting there and listening to somebody. Together. You stay together and you offer what you can. We all don't offer the same thing. If we all offered the same thing, we'd be kind of useless. There will be those who are stronger, those who are weaker. The strong are made to take care of the weak, and that's okay. And then the weak are not useless. No one is useless because they all offer something. So you come together en masse in community. I believe that's one of the reasons Mass is called Mass. You come together. That's why the church is supposed to exist. It's not just there to sing songs like, oh, God's so great, and then you go home or whatever and you forget about it. It's to come together and create a community and help each other. But you don't have to do that under a church. You don't do that in a big building. You don't do that, all that. You can do it in your house. You can do it over Discord. You can do it over a chat room. Whatever chat rooms we're still using. I don't know. I guess Discord kind of counts as a chat room. You do it over text. Come together. And you make that community, because let's say that small community of, let's say, 5 people that you get together, of your friends, that can save your life, that can save your family's life, that can be there. That little small community could change the world through something that happens, and that something crazy happens. And it turns out the 5 people together, oh my goodness, we had an idea that no one else had before. We didn't even think about it. And one of us couldn't have done it alone, but together we did. And that 5 turns into 10, and that 10 turns into 15, and then that 15 turns into 30, into 60. Well, how'd that happen? Then the 90, and then 200, 300, 400, and 1,000, and so on and so forth. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And united under one goal, you can do anything. Anything. The problem with anything is that it's anything. So yeah, you can get those groups that come together and do awful things. And they're hard to stop because they're doing it together. If they were just doing evil things individually, they'd probably be pretty easy to stop. But they do it together. They have a united front. But if you unite for any goal, and I say that should be a good goal, united, you're impossible to stop. You're impossible. Only divine intervention can stop you. But united with God, nothing can stop you. Not anything on this world, not Satan and all his forces, not any aliens, whatever. Whatever's flying in the sky these days, nothing. Mothman, doesn't matter. Can't stop you. I mean, with God on your side, you're pretty impossible to stop there because that counts as together. But again, we are not called to be alone. Even in that story where he splits them all up, he didn't split them up so that they would all be individual. He split them up into groups. They were still grouped so that later they could do his bidding. That's not the right way to put it. So later they could do his good works. They could do good works. Otherwise, he could have just did it person by person and had them spread out or couple by couple. But no, he did it into groups, even by that story. But to take from that story is together they were an unstoppable force because they were together. And really, we have already conquered that language barrier with the internet. We can do so much. Just we have to actually do it. And whatever we do. And just test it. Get together, or let's go do something. And if you stop thinking about, I can't do that because of one of these things. Now, granted, there might be some things that you can't do because of whatever reason. But if you take about money, I can't go do this because I don't have $200. All right? Say something like that. Well, stop thinking about just you having to be the one that puts up that bill. Oh, well, $200 split by 5 people is a lot easier to manage. And then you can go there and complete whatever you're doing that costs that $200. Or you get some people to pitch in. Now, people be like, well, isn't this like what GoFundMe's and certain things are? True, but that's trying to rely on strangers, which can work. And that is also a great example of showing that coming together, you can save lives. You can change lives. You can change the world. But I'm not talking about relying on strangers. Because when you're together, when you have a community, they're not strangers. They're in your community. So together and united, we are unstoppable. And that is the second and main lesson of the Tower of Babel, and why it was still kept in Genesis and wasn't removed like some other things, and why it was seen as important enough to keep. Because it wasn't just an explanation of why we all spoke different languages, but there's that little kernel there that says why he had to do it, or why he did it, or the actual, and God talking about it. He actually doesn't say why he does it. He doesn't do it because they're united and unstoppable. He does it because they're going against what he told them to do. But he said, look at them. Truly they are unstoppable. They are unstoppable. Nothing can stop them. The only thing that could was divine intervention. But together and with God, you truly are unstoppable. We are unstoppable. So do it. Reach out to a friend, to a family member. Try to create something. I'm trying to do my best by starting this. It starts here. And it's not going to blow up overnight. Nothing's like that's going to happen. I mean, it could. But you have to start that community. Help out here and there. Oh, I need like a buck here, a buck there. Oh, I need someone to make me a pie or this or that. Or you have a potluck. Or not everybody has enough money to feed themselves all the time. Well, then we're going to get together, make sure, if you all live close together, well, then you can make sure that, well, at least we're going to have dinner. Because we're going to get together every night and have dinner. A shared dinner. We pool our resources. Something like that. Because some of us are living in terrible situations. But together, you can make those situations disappear. And the next thing you know, the sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. So, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all are filled with the Spirit like I am, because I truly believe in those words that united, we are unstoppable. And we can unite against any great evil. There is nothing in this world that can stop us, especially with God on our side. We're not meant to do anything alone, despite being shamed into thinking that we're supposed to, but that makes no sense. It makes no sense scientifically, it makes no sense socially, it makes no sense culturally, and it makes no sense religiously. We do nothing alone. We are commanded to not be alone. To go out and create community. So anyone talks about pulling yourself by a bootstrap from it, I don't matter what situation you're in, that's literally not possible. You do nothing alone. If you start actually believing that you do everything alone, you do all that, that you don't need anybody but yourself, guess what? You will get reminded real hard that that's not true. Whether or not you learn that lesson, that's up to you. But I've seen it. I've seen it happen. It's the reason I believe it, because it happened to me. And there are some things of the individualism that are kind of baked in with me, or hyper individualism, that I'm trying to fight against on a daily basis. Mainly not because I think that I'm better than everyone, but because I don't think I'm better than everyone, and that I don't deserve help. That's a whole other issue in of itself. But I do deserve help. So do you. You deserve community. You deserve love. You deserve to be taken care of. You deserve to take care of others. We can do it together. We're not supposed to do it alone. We shouldn't alone. We aren't going to do it alone. We're going to do it together and with God. And with that, may God bless you. May you have a great day, a blessed day, and a blessed week, and so on and so forth. May the blessings multiply again and again. And I'll see you in the next one. I didn't really write an ending to this particular sermon. I just kind of wrote out the 2 pages. It's a little bit shorter than I thought. But yeah. So unite, get together, create your communities, call your friends, do whatever you could. Because even spreading joy is a good act. Because we need that. We need that. Especially now. That joy can get you through a day. And that's all we can, some of us can do, is just get through the day. So help them get through it. And then if you can, do a bit more. And then a bit more, and then a bit more, and then so on and so forth. But we have to do it together. And together we shall. Amen. So we thank y'all for listening, and we'll see y'all in the next one. God bless.